How did this happen? How did a normal day end with me confined to a hospital bed in labor and delivery 2 months before my actual due date? For several days, my sorors, frat brothers, and friends checked on me. I knew my family would have been there if they could, but they were all in Baton Rouge, and I was here in Natchitoches, Louisiana, without the people I needed the most. I slept in that cold room alone each night, trying to figure out what was going on in my body. A hospital stay isn't something a person wants to do alone, especially with the battle I was now fighting. Perhaps it'll help to tell you how this part of my story began. My name is Tarkisha Wallace. I was in church December 3rd, 2017, and our bishop was visiting and he was preaching. He came from this particular passage of scripture, and of all the scriptures, he read a lot of scriptures, but of all the scriptures, 3 words stuck out to me, and they just resonated in my mind. And anytime something comes to me, I generally write it down or text it or email it to myself. Most of the time, email it so that I can have it in my email and I won't open it until I deal with it. But through all those scriptures that he read, he came from Mark 5. There were 3 words in Mark 5:41 that stood out to me, and it was little girl arise. In that scripture, he says, little girl, I say to you, arise. And I was like, wow. And I wrote that down. Not what the bishop, that wasn't his subject, but that's what stood out. And so at first I thought it was going to be a series of like workshops, mental health or mental illness awareness type things or survival type things. I thought it was going to be in my natural counseling form, but it became a book. I didn't know that it was going to become a book, but eventually God told me in February I needed to start writing. He woke me up at 4 in the morning and said, it's time. I think sharing what I experienced so that it can help someone else. You know, a lot of times we see people out in the public and they look well put together. We see people and they have things that we admire or, you know, we want them for ourselves, but we never see what they go through to get there. But they see all of what I have, but they don't see what I don't have, the things that I desire, the things that I want, you know, and what I went through to get what I have. It wasn't easy. You know, God put me through a lot to get to where I am today, and he's still testing me. The best and almost one of the mistakes I've ever made is ask God to use me. In 2005, March of 2005, I got pregnant, found out I was pregnant. I literally, in my head, I could not be pregnant because when my mom found out, it was not gonna be good for me. I was pregnant at the wrong time. It was out of order. I had made a vow to God not to even lose my virginity until I was married. So things were all like out of order. I almost didn't, my mom doesn't even know this. I almost didn't graduate that semester. It was my last semester. September 2005 came and I went into preterm labor. At that time, my doctor put me on bed rest, you know, because of my body, and it was a critical time, you know, to go into labor and to preserve me and make sure that I held my baby until his due date. He wanted to put me on bed rest. So my family thought it was best that I come back to Baton Rouge because I didn't really have people there to help me. So I came back to Baton Rouge in September. And I wanted to go back to Natchitoches so bad for a baby shower that my friends were throwing me. And my mom told me, don't go to that baby shower. You don't need to go. You're already on bed rest. I was in physical therapy. When I was there, because I went, something happened. I had to get rushed home. I had my baby full term, but 5 days later he died. When he was born, he was lifeless then. I remember waking up and they were asking me, do I want to take him off the ventilator? Waking up after recovery, they asked me, that's the first question, when I'm expecting to see my baby. I already didn't hear him cry, you know. But 5 days later, I had to make the most difficult decision, still to this day, that I had to make in my life, and that was to take my son off the ventilator. For me, it's helped because in my mind, I'm a weakling. I'm a softie, you know, I'm a pushover. But if I could survive that, as long as it took me to survive it, anybody can survive any trying, any dying situation. During that time, I literally, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, I died. 13 years later, I want people to know that in the midst of tragedy, God really does have something that's so much better for us. In times that He takes the things we want the most, the things we cry out for, the things we sacrifice for, the things that we would give everything. I tell people all the time, for everything I have, my professional success, my material things, you know, where I am in life, I would trade it all if God stood before me right now and said, you want Jaden back or you want all of what you have? I would take Jaden in the struggle. But the reality is that God has so much more for me, and He chose to use such a special gift. So in times that you know life is kicking your butt, when it's beating you up, when you like, I'm drowning and you know there is no lifeguard, there's no lifesaver, there is no one around, trust that in the end God wraps it in purpose. Because that's what He certainly did with Jaden's death. He wrapped it in purpose.